Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I am the head coach at G.R.A.C.E Financial Coaching, and I am super excited to have Angela Carlson with us today. Angela is a financial coach as well, and she works with clients to prioritize financial decisions so that they can live the life they've always wanted. As a former financial aid director, Angela can also assist with financial aid related issues because we don't want you to end up getting one of those surprise bills from the registrar's office the first week of college, do we? So good morning, Angela. How are you?
I'm great, Suzanne. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you on. You are a wealth of knowledge. So let's first start with your financial coaching practice and how you are currently helping your clients.
Yeah, so my financial coaching practice was kind of born out of my unique background. To keep it short, I double majored in mathematics and communication. I spent 9 years working behind the scenes in retirement. I spent a season doing taxes, never again, and then a decade in financial aid. Due to having a near-death experience in September 2019, I realized that this was the path I was meant to be on. So now I'm here and serving clients to help them reach their financial goals or help them with their higher ed decisions and reviewing college aid information.
Yeah, that is a skill set that every parent who's ever had a kid go to college or even consider college wishes they had in their back pocket, right? It's so complicated.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, like just between working in an office, everything you're seeing in the media now about student loan forgiveness. There's just so much more than the average person would see.
It's so crazy. Good morning to our friend Abby. She also says, she's making fun of you. She said, never again for taxes, huh, Angie?
Nope.
You have to have a certain brain to do taxes, I think.
Yeah, well, and I'm a numbers person, so a lot of people are like, "Oh, you'd be such a great fit for taxes." And I had an opportunity to try it for a tax season, and I am just not. I just don't like that level of detail. And
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
nope, not again.
Yeah. So let's talk about big picture then, because if you're more of a big picture person,
Mhm.
what do you see come across your desk when you're working with financial coaching clients specifically? What are some of the big pictures that your clients are trying to achieve?
Yeah, so some of the big pictures my clients are trying to achieve is, especially with my married couple, just the communication on money. They're
Ah,
noticing that both of them were raised with knowing one thing about money, and they just assumed, like I did when I got married, that their spouse is just going to do it the way they did. And that is just not true. So I run into a lot of couples that they're like, they think their spouse doesn't know anything about money, but really they're just both looking at it from a different perspective. So how do we merge those perspectives together to find something that works for them as a team?
and this is a common thread that we see as financial coaches. I have um, asked the generic, what you and me would consider to be a generic question of
Mhm.
what was money like for you growing up, and I've asked it in front of the other spouse, and I've had the other spouse look at the spouse and go, I had no idea. I didn't know that
Mhm.
we've been married for 10 years. You never told me that.
Right.
And money can be such a stigmatizing topic, especially in a marriage when you're coming from two completely different places.
Correct. And the other one I've seen too is sometimes one spouse will have guilt because maybe they've hidden purchases or haven't fully been truthful. So that guilt also isn't just financial, it feeds into so many other parts of their marriage. So
Yeah.
there's just so much more to it than just the money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it can be the best part of a relationship. It can be the worst part of a relationship. So
And it's kind of funny how when you relate to money, if the money's going well, normally the relationship's going well. And if the
yeah,
money is not going well, there's usually other things going on in the relationship to uncover too.
either other things are coming in from the relationship or that negativity and those financial issues
Mhm.
spread throughout the rest of it. I've definitely seen
Absolutely.
that where people have said to me, "Hey, we worked with you to get our finances in order, but we really got our marriage in order." And that's not
Mhm.
uncommon as financial coaches.
No, not at all.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the wonderful financial aid side of things. I remember my mother sitting there at the kitchen table, filling out our FAFSAs on paper. I'm sure everything's online these days, but everything was paper back then. And having literally we couldn't even eat dinner. There was so much paperwork strewn across the dinner table. So what's changed since I went to college 15, 20 years ago? What's the biggest difference now that kids have to combat or their parents have to combat when it comes to the financial aid
I
realm?
would I would just say there's just so much more to put together. So The thing about financially that most people don't realize is that each organization controls their own pots of funds. So the federal government controls the federal funds, the state controls their funds, which the rules can be different for every program. So for example, I live in Iowa, and I know Iowa's got several different state programs. Some aid follows the students from when they were in the 7th grade to wherever college they go to. Some's income restricted, some's tuition restricted. So all that complicates things. Then you add in institutional aid, which is determined by the school or the endowments, and every outside scholarship can have their own funds. So not only has that changed, one of the biggest changes I've seen since COVID is a lot of scholarship agencies are not paying their scholarships until after the student completes a semester of school.
Whoa, that's a big change.
Yeah, that's usually a shock because parents think like, hey, they got a scholarship, it's going to help with the bill. And it may not help till the January bill, not necessarily your August bill.
So it's not even a grant, it's a reimbursement. It's a scholarship reimbursement, technically.
And you can think of it that way. It technically goes against the bill for that second semester, but but especially if the parents are thinking about it up front, that can be a surprise that a lot of parents are not expecting.
Right, because I remember doing a handful of like essays and stuff like that and getting $250 here and $500 here and $1,000 there. Nothing that really at that time we weren't as educated about it as most people are today, where you can go get 15 scholarships for writing a few essays and it's just a matter of there's so many organizations that want to give that money out. But I remember writing out a handful of those things and we got the money before I started school.
Yeah, and some agencies, they may send it to the student, they may send it to the school, they may make a co-payable. All those details are in the scholarship fine print. So if you're not really reading the fine print of everything, or the fine print doesn't make a lot of sense, it can cost you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I could go either way on should the scholarship go directly to the school, should the scholarship go directly to the person. I could make an argument for both sides, but that's so interesting. Wow. Not having college-aged kids anytime soon. That's definitely something that never even occurred to me. So
yeah, and even the scholarships that go to the student technically have to be reported because that can impact how the financial aid office does their calculations. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that most people are not even aware of.
Oh gosh, someone with your knowledge is invaluable in this situation.
Thank
really.
you.
Definitely. So your clients are very lucky to have you. So Angie, I created this show to help people realize that we all make financial mistakes, but we may be able to learn from the experience of others before making some of those mistakes. So Angie, what is the dumbest thing that you've ever done with money?
20 years ago, I bought a long-term care insurance policy at the ripe age of 22.
22?
And I kept it for 3 years before I realized this probably isn't a good financial decision. So I guess, I did drop it at 25, but I'm like, the 3 years of the money.
So let's go back to when you signed up for it. Where were you? Were you in college, just finished college? How did you even hear about long-term care insurance?
I had just finished college. I was starting in my retirement job, and that was one of the employee benefits to sign up for. And it was based on your age. And a lot of my older coworkers were just kind of making comments of, gosh, this is like expensive. But, they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So of course the price for that would have gone up. So with me being young, it was kind of like, man, $22 a month is like a steal.
So that was really, so you just saw other people doing it and you're like, well, let me get in while it's cheap, basically.
Well, I was working at a place that dealt with money. So I was fresh out of college and just naively assumed that when you work at a place that deals with money, they know how to guide you. So I followed the guidance.
There you go. Right. And so what made you realize you didn't need it?
I had been listening to some podcasts that were talking about like you shouldn't get it till 60 and you shouldn't have it till later. And I remember having a conversation with somebody and they're like, why would you have it so young? And I just kind of did my research and I'm like, I don't need this at this age. I need to wait like 30 more years or 40 more years until I even buy a policy. So why am I wasting the money on it now? And, $22 a month over 3 years doesn't sound like a lot of money, but put that in an investment calculator and you'll get sick quick.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Laura, how long did you keep it? So was it a full 3 years, Angie?
Full 3 years.
Oh my goodness. So she was she was super old at the age of 25, Laura, when she finally got rid of it. So now we've fast forwarded 20 years. Do you have long-term care insurance right now?
Oh, goodness, no.
Right. Because doing your research, give us a brief rundown on what the qualifications really are for a long-term care policy.
So with the long-term care policy, it's just to help offset your expenses coming at the end of life. And so most people wouldn't even need to start looking at a policy until they're 60. So I've still got plenty of time until I need to start looking.
Right,
Although if
right.
I would have invested that money from when I paid for 3 years, I could have paid a good half a year of long-term care at current prices.
Oh my goodness. I know, looking back on those mistakes and saying, if we had just invested X, what would that look, what would Y be now, right? Exactly. Yes, Laura, she was super old when she canceled that policy. That's so interesting. So no one at your job stopped you. No one said, Angie, you're new here. You probably don't need this yet. They just watched you go ahead with it.
Correct.
That's so funny. And so looking back now, what would you have done differently?
I would have looked into the policy more before I decided to do it, instead of just jumping on the bandwagon and trusting everyone else like it's a good decision.
Right.
And
right.
it did, and the positive of it is it did shape my perspective on money, where I'm like, I just need to trust myself more. I need to trust my knowledge. I need to trust my research. I need to trust that I know where to reach out for help.
How does that experience and what you just said translate into what you do with your clients today?
That's exactly what I do. I will sit with them in a session. I will give them guidance, but I also will ask them, you need to do your own homework. Like this is, and I'll provide them evidence with, okay, I'm saying this, here's why, but I want them to do their own homework and come to the decision that's good for them. Because, Suzanne, as we're coaches, we know that as we work and guide clients, not every client's going to accept every word of our guidance.
Right.
And that's part of being a coach, is meeting them where they're at. And that's the goal, is to meet them where they're at. You have an issue. Okay, let's discuss it. Let's discuss possible outcomes. And let's take that as an action item before our next session.
Yeah. One of the best things about coaching is being able to give people options. Instead of them saying, there's nothing I can do, I have to go finance a car.
Correct.
Timeout. What? Lots of people live with one car. Lots of people are one car families. Can we be a one car family? Let's go down that path. Then we go down it doesn't really seem realistic to be a one car family. Where else can we look besides Carvana? Because right now a 4-door sedan on Carvana is $25,000. What are some of the other options that we can do? And I think that's probably something that you experience in your coaching as well, is getting people those options.
Correct. And also, even, before we go down the options, just getting, if it's a couple I'm working with, okay, is the couple even agree on the right decision to be made? Because sometimes if their agreement's really far off, the first thing is to kind of be like, okay, let's bring you two together a little bit more before we even go down the path of options, because options won't do any good if we're not on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Laura says options equal power. Definitely. So the more options you have, the more powerful you're going to be in making that decision. But let's pause on that thing, especially when it comes to couples, because we tend to coach a lot of married couples with finances, right? That's a stage of life where people look and they say, you know what, we could use some help with this.
Yeah, but you know what? I also have a client who just turned 21, that's single, that is knocking it out of the park too.
Yes. Definitely. But talking about having the two different personalities or the two different, hey, we need this second car, but what if one of the spouses says, we really don't need a second car? Well, like you said, before we get the options on the table, now we need to decide if this is even a problem.
Right.
Yeah. How do you work your clients through that kind of stuff?
It's just really just through asking questions and just reminding them that, this is a process. This is no need to be upset with your spouse for their opinion, because and the fact that you're coming to coaching is telling me you're wanting to work as a team. Yeah. So you're actually closer than what you think. How do we just keep bridging that gap to bring you together more? Yeah.
I love that. Making a note of that. So when we bridge the gap, we can talk about that in the sense of the couple, right? The bridging the gap between them. But how about bridging the knowledge gap? How often have you heard from a client, Angie, I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I've heard that a lot only on my personal journey with my spouse, and also from clients that are just like, We don't know. I mean, I was working with a couple that they're in a great financial shape, but they also were like, we've never really discussed how we got in here. And so,
What did we do to get to this place? We're not even
yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
so that's sometimes what I call just the fine tuning. Like, you've got the skills. You're not, I mean, and with money, it's not necessarily that you're in debt or not. Like, to me, that part is irrelevant. You can be out of debt and not on the same page too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I tend to find when we have couples or even single people who are in a higher income bracket, and I hesitate to use this phrase, but haven't needed to budget. That's when you can get into some of those situations where if that need ever arises, the issues that causes is greater than the people who have been budgeting because they had lower income and more expenses and more debt to pay off. It can be a greater challenge with those people for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're in where you have that more limited income, you're more cognizant of, I need to make every dollar work as hard as it can possibly work. Where if you have that great income, that's not really there as much because you're not feeling the impact of knowing where every dollar goes in your day-to-day life as you are with a lower income.
Right, right. But then when something happens where you do need to start paying attention, it can be definitely more impactful for sure. I've seen that
Oh,
with people
absolutely.
who have grown their businesses, people who have, risen through the ranks of whatever career they're in. They've gotten married and then all of a sudden their spouse is bringing a fantastic income in. And it's like, hey, this is great, but we're still putting vacations on a credit card. How did we get here?
Well, and that's your PSA for the holidays are coming up, and there's another method to do those too.
Yes, exactly. What kind of advice are you giving your clients for the holidays right now? Because the report this morning, everyone check the date of this recording, but the stock market is down again this morning. So what kind of advice are you giving your clients with all of the inflation and the economic issues that we're seeing right now?
So earlier in August, I did post on like, hey, if you're looking to spend this much by Christmas, take that number divided by 5 so you know what you need to save every month. So the fact for in October, we've got 2-3 months before some of the major holidays. So that's, less time to save. And just biggest thing is, not going into debt. It's okay if Christmas, Christmas can be a craft, or Christmas can be, if someone, gave me 2 hours of free house cleaning right now, that to me would be a super meaningful gift.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
So there's ways to be creative with your gift giving.
Yeah.
That
definitely.
are still that are so appreciative and so valuable.
Yeah. The at this point, I have some people who should have been saving for Christmas already, and we're breaking it down by paycheck now. So if we've got 5 paychecks between now and the second week of December, then we're going to put away X number of dollars from each paycheck, from a logistical standpoint. But the other thing is, like you said, you can always, Laura, bring on the housekeeping and the babysitting. All right, guys, we know what Laura wants for Christmas this year. Everyone make a note. So the challenge is not necessarily putting the money away from 5 months ago or from 5 paychecks from now, right? It's keeping it under control.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a famous story of a client who hired me in January of 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And she said, I don't care what else we do. Do not let me spend $6,000 on Christmas again. And It was a combination of her lack of discipline, but also unhealthy boundaries within her own family and within her extended family. And we spent the entire year building processes and her systems to be able to combat that 11 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily just like you said, hey, plan ahead, start saving in August. What do you do with the clients who historically don't do so great during the holidays, or they know themselves and they know it's a challenge?
Well, I'm doing reminders right now. This is like, keep your 2022 holiday spending in 2022. Don't carry it into the new year with you.
Yes, so true. It's so upsetting to wake up on January 15th and see that credit card statement. And that's what we're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just, there's all the ways that the payments just keep coming up in your life. It's not really, it's hard to, look back on something to enjoy it when you're paying on it.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're looking at your credit card statement in July and saying, I'm still paying that $6,000 Christmas, right? That's crazy. So Laura says, forget the knickknacks, and $6,000 can be a great Christmas family cruise. Yeah, depending on how many people you're taking, that'd be a damn good cruise. So what kind of advice, Angie, do you have, just generally speaking, for people out there who are looking for assistance with their finances? Maybe not financial aid, maybe not Christmas, but just overall are looking to, we're getting close to the end of the year. We're getting close to the holidays. People have those resolutions. What do you think those people need to hear right now?
The main question I think they need to hear is, why are you waiting until the first of the year to start working on your 2023 goals? Who says you have to wait till then? I'll give you permission. Start them now.
Yeah. And what are some of the goals that you consistently have your clients work on?
So the first one is usually just keeping their spending in check. And then as they list out their larger goals, we look at breaking them down to see, okay, what can we, what's like the 3 to 6 month version? What's, a longer version? What's a longer version? How do we take small steps to make sure we're on the path to get there?
Yeah.
And so the clients all have different goals. I mean, if the goal is saving more for retirement, okay, let's look at the spending and what's going on. And okay, you said this is important to you. Let's show it in your budget that it's important to you.
Right. Because we can say it out loud, but until we commit pen to paper and dollars to savings accounts or to debt payments or whatever, we're not really doing it, are we?
No, we're not. And it's just, do you want to look good or do you want to feel good?
I love that. I love it. All right, Angie, I'm going to have you pull up that retirement calculator. How much did that long-term care insurance cost you?
If I would have taken that $800 over 3 years and invested it in retirement at an average 10% return until I was 67, it cost me $52,000.
Oh my gosh. It's so painful, isn't it?
That is really, really painful. But I've also learned a lot of lessons, and I'm like, are the lessons I learned worth $52,000 to me? And there's some of them I can say, yeah, they are.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the dumb stuff that people have come on and talked about doesn't necessarily have to happen 10, 20, 25 years ago. I've had people come on and talk about something dumb they did 6 months ago, and we're still learning. And I think that's really the most important part of why I do this, is to talk to people about, we didn't all make these mistakes 20 years ago. We're still making them. We're still learning. And as soon as we make that mistake, it's going to be something that we don't make. It doesn't happen in the future.
Correct.
And that's the benefit of it. So, Angie, thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody check out Angie's contact information in the show notes. And I hope you guys will join me next week for another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thanks again, Angie.
Thank you.